Welcome to Cellmates, a podcast where we compare, contrast, and generally throw a Venn diagram over two animated movies. I'm Kate Phillips.
No, you're not.
No, I'm Dick Ward.
I'm Kate Phillips.
You are Kate Phillips. You got that right.
Yeah, the movies we watch have addled your brain to a point of...
True, my brain is addled.
Often those movies that we Venn diagram are Disney.
But not always.
Often they are musicals.
But not always.
Often they are good.
But not always.
Neat.
Yeah. Kate.
Yeah.
What you drinking?
Well, I'm drinking a delicious drink that I like to call Blueberry Fields Forever. Ask me why I'm calling it that.
Why are
Dick.
you calling it that?
Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. There are blueberries in it.
Are there fields in it?
Well, not really. I mean, almonds grow in fields. Almonds grow... I don't know how almonds grow.
An almond could grow in I'd grow an almond in a field. That sounds lovely.
So it's a blue adaptation of a drink we found called Strawberry Fields Forever.
Okay.
Or Strawberry Fields, maybe. Just, I looked up a lot of recipes, and I chose the one that had the most ingredients we already had in our home.
Okay.
And then we made some more, because we made a blueberry almond simple syrup.
Yeah,
Is that correct, Dick?
We did.
Yeah.
And it turned out surprisingly well.
Yeah.
You really taste the almonds. It tastes like basically a blueberry muffin.
It's blueberry muffin syrup. It's great. So even though the drink appears pink, it is technically blue. And I don't know. I guess if I drank enough of it, my head might go crazy and I might see some whacked out images set to whatever music I was listening to at the time. I mean, there's no absinthe, but
Yet. We'll have to put it in order.
Why would you say that we'd be drinking something called Blueberry Fields forever or not forever?
Not forever.
No.
I'm going to finish this drink pretty quick. And probably this episode, because we don't have as much to talk about, I think, as we normally do.
Famous last words, 4-hour episode.
Fair. I would say because we watched two movies involving blue things.
Mm-hmm. And one of them featured a band who sings the song Strawberry Fields Forever.
Are you talking about Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band, or are you talking about the Beatles?
Oh my gosh.
Because there's a decent chance they both sang it.
Is that Inception? Are you Inceptioning me with Beatles songs?
No.
Are there certain songs that Strawberry Pepper's band sings?
Nope.
Okay.
It's just the Beatles. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Yeah. So we watched a Beatles movie, and then we watched...
specifically Yellow Submarine.
Yep.
The animated Beatles movie.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Because I've seen Hard Day's Night and Help, and I love those.
We saw Yellow Submarine, and at the suggestion of one of our listeners... Spencer.
He suggested a different pairing, but we thought this would be fascinating. We did Interstella 5555, which full title is Interstella 555, the story of the secret star system,
Dick,
but all the S's are fives.
Yeah, I'm reading the five story of the five egret, five tar, five-istum.
That's also correct. Yes.
Great.
Which is by...
It's a Daft Punk.
A Daft Punk album adapted into
a visual realization based on the Wikipedia. So it's
what did you call these?
These are film tracks, right?
Yeah, it's a film track, not a soundtrack, a film track.
The music already existed, and they put some movie over it.
Yeah.
And so with these, what we're doing in the background right now is we're watching Fantasia.
Yeah, we've just kind of got Fantasia on.
The original film track. So we're kind of doing 2.5 movies this episode.
It's hard to sit and watch Fantasia all the way through. I like it in the background. I saw Fantasia 2000 in theaters, but I can't.
I don't know how you do it in theaters. I need to be talking over it or like coming in and out of it.
Well, in theaters,
we're the same with the other ones too, to be honest.
You've got you got like the big immersive sound system.
Yeah, I guess it's more like being at a live concert.
Yeah, so it like I haven't seen the original Fantasia in theaters, but Fantasia 2000 was a lot of fun for what it was.
Yeah. And both of these films, I think, draw their inspiration from Fantasia in terms of existing in the first place.
In some way or another, yeah.
Fantasia was the first animated film to just be fully set to music and not have, Snow White had music in it and Bambi and etc. But this is the first, this is Walt Disney, one of his crazy ideas, like, build me a tiny train I can take around my theme park. Build me a movie that animates classic orchestral pieces.
It's like, oh, we figured out sound. Let's do like 2 hours of orchestral music set to mostly not that racist animation.
Yeah, mostly. Some of it is.
There's some problems.
There are some problems with the mushrooms and whatnot. So, Dick, let's go back to Yellow Submarine.
Okay.
Because that's the first movie we're talking about.
Yeah.
Or do we want to talk about Fantasia briefly?
I think we did.
We did. Great. Well, we don't need to do a synopsis.
No.
Because it's not one of our official movies.
Also, what's the story of Fantasia? A bunch of music.
Well, there are 8 stories to Fantasia.
Right.
And
the story that's on now is a bunch of flowers are dancing.
yeah. But it's not Dance of the Flowers. It's the Russian dance. It's the tree pack with flowers dancing. So it's a little confusing because there is a Dance of the Flowers in the Nutcracker suite. Anyway, Dick, what's your first...
I don't know or care.
What's your first interaction with Yellow Submarine, the movie?
So my first interaction with Yellow Submarine, the movie, was watching it now. Watching it like yesterday or 2 days ago. I'd seen it referenced. Mm-hmm. I'd seen stills from it. Mm-hmm. And I'll say, my first interaction with the Beatles was like forever ago because I'm a American.
American adult.
I'm an American adult. I've heard the Beatles. But I've been a Beatles fan all my life. I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest Beatles fan, but I really like them. I listen to, every once in a while I'll pop on an album. The first solo I learned on my guitar was from Let It Be. So yeah, I really like the Beatles. I think they're really good. Controversial statement, I know. But I never got that into the ephemera, the things surrounding the Beatles.
Okay.
Like I don't have a Wings album. I don't know really any of like Ringo's solo stuff. I know maybe I'm Amazed, but like I don't know any other Paul solo stuff. So
but you had seen the 2 other movies.
I had seen the 2 other movies.
Or there might be more than that. But you had seen two other movies.
That were a bunch of fun.
They're like kind of like the slapsticky kind of Benny Hill style, right?
It's like a mix between slapsticky and lots of wordplay. Lots of fast wordplay.
Great, my 2 favorite things.
Yeah, you would love it. They are very
Looney Tunes and puns, my 2 favorites.
They're very clever. But no, in was a Hard Day's Night. It's like, the beginning of the Beatles being a thing. Like everyone knows who they are. And I think it's like John Lennon. There's a scene where he's like walking down the street and a woman's like, oh, you know who you look like? And he's like, and she's like, oh, you look like that boy, John Lennon. He's like, oh, I've heard that. Let me smile for you or something. And she's like, you know what? On second thought, you don't look very much like him at all. She walks away. It's just like
that's fun. Yeah.
A lot of stuff like that. So I enjoy the Beatles. So I really had.
You had no idea what you were in for.
I had
with
expectations.
Yeah, same. I've heard Beatles songs. Not particularly I like the songs a lot. I don't particularly like the Beatles' voices singing their songs, which is a legitimately controversial statement.
And that's just wrong. That's okay, though.
I'm more familiar. This is maybe a timing thing or just I am more familiar with the Across the Universe versions of Beatles songs than the regular ones. So to me, like when I hear, what was the song that I heard in this movie where I'm like, no, this isn't how this song is sung.
Come to get all together now.
Yeah, but it was, like Even All You Need Is Love. I'm like, yeah, this one is fine. So same, like I knew what this movie generally looked like. Like it's kind of that trippy 60s vibe of animation. And I know that like other animation references. It's a strong reference point in animation of just like psychedelic nonsense kind of goops appear and rainbows appear out of nowhere. But I had never seen it either.
Yeah.
And I will say probably you knew all but one or two songs that were in it.
I never really listened to the album Yellow Submarine.
Which is
because it's
specifically a soundtrack album for this movie, right?
Yeah, it's like 4 songs that weren't released, but also Yellow Submarine and All You Need Is Love that were like released on other albums.
Yeah.
I think they're both on Revolver. And then like 7 songs that were just the soundtrack to the movie. So I didn't care. I didn't care about it. Also, I think Yellow Submarine is among the Beatles' worst songs. So
it's the same kind of vibe of
I'm
like
okay.
Octopus's Garden. It's like, what are you singing about?
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to cookie timer this movie. Is that correct?
Oh, you're doing this one.
Because I definitely can't do the other one.
Oh, may I just say, I also knew about the Blue Meanies because there was a wonderful, hilarious professional wrestler, good friend of Al Snow's, named the Blue Meanie. He was a fat guy with blue hair, and he was great.
All right.
Probably still is great. I don't know if he's still wrestling.
Yeah.
But Blue Meanie, great.
Oh, man, we're about to see Mickey in a bunch of brooms. So I'm going to get through this.
Do you want to tell
Summer
do
really
you want to tell the
fast.
brooms first
Well,
so you don't get distracted?
Yeah, I think that's about
All
right. So I don't care for Fantasia. I appreciate it as what it did for.
And you're a music teacher.
Well, and that. So one of the reasons I don't care that much about Fantasia is because it's not for kids. It is, the segments are way too long for kids. You think it's going to be fun. Like, I had it as my sub-plans, like, my first year of teaching or second year, and then I'm like, oh, no, kids don't care about this.
No.
There are a couple segments you can show them that they really love. Fantasia 2000, the Rhapsody in Blue through New York. That's
really
my
fun.
favorite Fantasia segment. Anything, like, kids respond to plot and characters, and Fantasia sequences don't have that except for The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which is the Mickey being a wizard.
Yeah. Which isn't even originally from Fantasia.
No, so this version, yes, you can only see it in Fantasia,
Okay.
but it was originally developed as like kind of a special Mickey silly sing-along.
Yeah.
But then they went like 4 times over budget on it because Walt just kept wanting more things, and they were like, and Roy's like, no, we need to build a whole movie
Silly
out of
Symphony.
this. Silly Symphony, yeah, that's it.
I would sing along to this though.
And so the first time I actually saw Fantasia all the way through without like piecing out was when I was adult. I believe I was recovering from either wisdom tooth surgery or a broken foot. So painkillers were involved.
So you were like, you were a little spaced out.
Yeah, painkillers were involved. And I'm like, well, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I love Fantasia. And then quickly realized, like, well, kids don't give a crap.
No.
But this scene came on.
Which scene?
The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
The podcast people can't hear.
Yeah,
see our
but we've
TV.
said it now like 3 times.
I'm just making sure.
Anyway, and my brother comes down halfway through the scene, and I just look at him and I say, the thing about this one, too many brooms. And now it's been a joke in our family.
It's been a family
for
joke.
7-8 years. And it's true. That's
That's
the
true.
thing about this
Too
one.
many brooms.
Mickey conjures up. He plays around in the sorcerer's
So,
basement and
yes.
makes a flood, and then has the brooms clean it up, and then he
Kate,
clones
you're not
the
on a
brooms.
cookie timer for this.
All right, well,
Cool.
It could
So
be.
I just do want to say, I think something interesting about Fantasia and about Yellow Submarine, and probably Interstella, is context. So we come from a generation where we grew up with music videos, being like 3 to 4 minutes, telling a story, doing a whole thing. And also, the first time I heard a lot of the classical music in Fantasia was in Fantasia. I wonder, growing up, like listening to classical music, if you're in the audience and you're like, well, I'm a big fan of classical music, and then you see this animation set to it, is that blowing your mind in a way that we can't appreciate?
right.
Because we're like, oh yeah, it's like classical music and animation cool.
Yeah, I think that's one side of it. And I think we'll get to later, like this idea of we also grew up on narrative movie, like animated musicals, which this is what, number 3 in Disney feature films?
Yeah,
so
it's
that you
early.
only have, what, Snow White and Bambi, I think, at this point.
And this is like a completely different thing.
This is more like Silly Symphonies, just
Yeah.
a bunch strung together with better music and better animation. So there is a context even for this. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I recognize this genre of animation.
Well, speaking of movies that we don't have the context for, Kate, why don't you tell us about?
Let's go for it. I'm going to put 2 minutes on the clock for Yellow Submarine,
Okay.
and I'm going to try to summarize it.
Okay.
All right. So there's this town that has, I think it's a Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and they're playing music. Everyone's playing music. And then there's these blue meanies that come around, and they don't like music. So they put a blue bubble around the Yellow Submarine band, and then not the Yellow Submarine, the band.
Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yeah. And then they turn the rest of the town into statues, and they're taking over. But one guy escapes on a yellow submarine, and he's like a admiral guy, and he escapes on his flying yellow submarine. He finds the Beatles one by one in these kind of confusing Escher hallways, and they have to stop the blue meanies so that this town and its music can come back. So basically after that, it's just a big long trip that interspersed with Beatles songs that they kind of just set up just so that they can put it in there. It's like, oh, we're going through time and space. Oh, now we're young. Oh, now we're old. Oh, will you still love me when I'm 64? So there's like no transitions, but that's okay. So they go through that zone, and they go through like a monster dinosaur zone, and everything is kind of alphabet people kind of or letter people terrifying. And then they find the blue meanies, and they defeat the glove by taking the G off of the word glove and saying, no, all you need is love. And that defeats the glove. But then there are more meanies that come up. And then they have to defeat a bulldog, and they do it by playing a piano. And then they have to defeat the meanies like a third time. And they do it by getting all the instruments and playing really loud. And then the meanies go away. And then the people come back to life. They also use the people statues as like pawns and shields, and anyway, they break the bubble by like punching it really hard, and then they sing together and play together, and then the real Beatles show up in live action form, and they say goodbye, and the movie's done. All you need is love.
All you need is love.
The thing about this one is too many brooms.
Okay, so they actually don't punch the bubble. Ringo has a hole in his pocket. He pulls
they try
out
to
the
punch
hole.
the bubble.
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a lot in this. Before we get into like, this was a miserable viewing experience.
It really was for us. Sorry, people.
So if you're a fan, hey, good on you. I'm sure there's context in which this is much more interesting as a movie. But it was a pretty rough viewing experience. Things I noticed where there was like that long hallway scene where they were running in and out of different doors. This is before Scooby-Doo, and that's a regular Scooby-Doo gag.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if that's a thing that's been done a bunch of times before, or if it's like these cool avant-garde artists.
Yeah, if you haven't seen this, or I guess Scooby-Doo, it's like a thing with, there's a lot of doors on either side of the hallway, and a character goes in one door, but then comes out like 4 doors later on the other side, and it's...
Yeah, it's if you've seen any episode of Scooby-Doo, you've seen this happen.
Right.
A pop song plays over it. So like, that's something I noticed. And there were like a couple of things like that where I'm like, oh, is this where that came from? Or like I was saying, like the art.
This is 1968.
Right.
So this is a year before like Sesame Street kind of brings a more regular animated thing. Like, and you know, this is a movie of non sequiturs, essentially. And that's kind of what Sesame Street animated segments are, closer to like what Disney was doing. Yeah. And even because Jungle Book is 67.
Yeah.
So Disney is using animation in terms of a very narrative structure.
Right.
And this is just like, well, we don't, like, here's a story if you want it.
I feel like this came from like an art scene rather than an animation scene.
Yeah.
The other thing that really stuck out to me, which I know had like happened before, Terry Gilliam did it for Monty Python, but like using pictures of people, like using an actual picture and like animating the mouth, or
it's like pop arty looking.
Yeah. Which is really neat and is very effective at doing certain things. But yeah, I had never seen that pre Monty Python. Mm-hmm. It may have, it probably existed plenty before, but it was really neat to see.
Yeah.
So there's just like a lot of. So when I say that we lack the context for Fantasia, I think we also lack the context for Yellow Submarine.
I agree.
Like we're 50 years after it, 52 years after it at this point. So like, you know, I don't know where the world is at this time. I do know
there's a lot of documentaries on the year after it.
Yeah. I know everyone's like really embracing the kind of psychedelic movement. So I think there's a lot in this movie that we don't quite understand.
Yeah. And just a bunch of references to, like,
yes.
They're making references to things in British
so many
culture
references
and
that I'm
things
just
in
like,
60s
I don't know
culture.
what you're talking about.
I really, like, this was a pretty effective just time machine. And not like the kind where you can do a butterfly effect, just the kind where you're completely disoriented.
Right.
But I really felt like, I just don't know what year it is right now. There's nothing I can kind of grab onto that's a modern. Anyway, see, here's the part where Mickey's tugging at his
I told you
jacket.
that hadn't happened.
Yeah.
So, it's a little rough. We watched another
when
movie.
the songs were on, it was nice.
Yeah, when the songs were on, it was great.
Yeah.
Because they just felt like kind of artsy music videos.
Yeah.
They had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Anything, but we watched another movie.
We did. Speaking of, you already did a segue, but I'll do a second one because I interrupted your segue.
Go for it.
Sorry. Speaking of visuals that have little to do with the music.
Okay.
We watched another movie.
Yeah.
Interstella.
I would not have done that
Five,
segue. Yikes.
5. Well,
that was
it's
harsh.
Not really. I don't think it's supposed to be.
No, it's not.
Interstella is a Daft Punk album. What album is it?
Discovery.
So it's a 2003 film. Is that the same year as the album?
2001 album.
Okay.
And Discovery, according to Daft Punk, is kind of about embracing music as fun. And like hearing it as they did when they were kids, when it was like, cool, this is fun, let's do it. This means it's great music, sort of thing. Which it relates strongly to their childhood memories, incorporating their love of cinema and character, according to Wikipedia. Interstella is about a outer space rock band that gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
So it's different.
Dick, when did you first learn of this movie, or what's your Daft Punk history?
So I'll start with Daft Punk. I kind of know a little bit of Daft Punk, but not much. Like, I've heard them as much as most people have heard them, except I haven't seen the new Tron, so I haven't heard that. I think they're pretty good. I don't know. They're fine. I've never really listened to them, but I enjoyed everything on this Interstella soundtrack. My experience with the movie is I really loved the music video for One More Time, which is basically footage from the movie.
One more time.
Yeah. It's like the band from the movie playing the song.
No, that's just the music video.
The music video is just the band playing the song. So I don't know when I found out that it was a movie, but it was long after I was like, oh, this music video is so cool. Oh, I wish they made like a movie of this or something.
Oh.
And it turns out they did.
You're in luck.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I've probably heard more Daft Punk songs than I know. Because
I think
even
that's accurate.
Looking at just this soundtrack and this album, I'm like, oh, that's Daft Punk? Oh, right, that's not originally a Kanye West song. That's another, right? Like, so I'm sure I've heard more than I know. But yeah, not a Daft Punk. I think it was only like 2 years ago that I learned that they're a band that does helmets and only helmets.
Oh.
Like they don't perform with their faces.
That started on this album.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, they were face people before.
They were face people,
and now they're furs.
Yes.
Like Disney
They were
World.
face characters. Now they're fur characters. They said they had an accident in their studio that turned them into robots.
Cool.
Yep.
So my experience with this film is watching 4 minutes of a different film. My prior experience with this film.
Electroma.
So when you type in Daft Punk movie, you think there's only going to be one search result.
Yeah.
Wrong. There are multiple search results for Daft Punk movies. Only one of them is animated, I believe.
That may or may not be true.
Well,
I can't confirm.
so we started watching first on YouTube a movie called Electroma. Is that it?
Electroma.
And it starts with just a desert, like kind of Grand Canyon-y, and then Daft Punk driving in a car through the desert.
Yeah.
And it's pretty silent besides the sound of a car's engine for the entire 3.5 minutes we watched before. Was it you who said?
Well, no, I said, I was looking, I'm like, that's interesting. I know it's animated. I've seen parts of it, but maybe it starts this way. And you were looking up and on Wikipedia, you're like, oh, interesting. It doesn't have any of Daft Punk's music. And I'm like, this is not the right movie.
So I've accidentally seen 1 and 1/10 of a Daft Punk movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't that one, but yeah, this one I had never heard of before the suggestion came in from Spencer. I had not seen any part of the video. I mean, I didn't know that Daft Punk was robot, so I'm just in the dark. Yeah, so this was a brand new experience for me.
And we should explain, which I don't think we ever did. The aliens in the Daft Punk movie are blue.
Yes, they're not Daft Punk.
No, but that's why.
But the Beatles in the Beatles movie.
That's why our blueberry drink makes sense.
You did say there were blue characters at the beginning.
Great. I couldn't remember if I said that.
Yeah. We got blue meanies. We got blue rock band aliens.
Yeah.
Yeah, Beatles are in their movie, although they're not voiced by the Beatles.
Until the end. And then they are.
But Daft Punk is not. Well, they make a cameo.
They make a cameo, but how much do you make a cameo in an animated movie where you don't have a line?
Right. Well,
right?
I guess their singing is technically them in the movie.
So their characters are drawn. It's weird to call it a cameo. I'm confused.
They're the
by
Leah
that.
Salonga and Brad Kane of this movie. They get to sing, but they're not actually the character. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Dick, I think it's your turn to cookie summary.
Yeah, you got it.
This movie.
Okay.
Are you just going to read from Wikipedia?
I'm pulling up the Wikipedia so that I can address the character names.
Yeah, but the characters don't have names in the movie.
Okay, I will address them by the names that we came up with.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ready?
Yes.
Set, begin.
We open on a band. The band is called Interstella or Stellarific or something like that.
No idea.
And there are 4 members. One of them we named Daft. Mm-hmm. She's a lady. One of them is named Punk. He's a guy. One of them is named Chunk. He's a chubby drummer. Mm-hmm. And then one of them is named Lunk. He's a cool guy with an afro. That is their names. They get kidnapped and mind controlled by a record producer who uses them on Earth. Yes, by a record producer who takes them to Earth and who uses them to get gold and platinum records and stuff. And they get rescued by another alien
from their planet.
Yep, except for Daft, the girl, whose actual name is Stella, but Daft. She does not get rescued, and then the record producer goes on to keep using her to create these mega hits. Mm-hmm. And then they find a way to rescue her. They go rescue her, and somewhere along the way, the alien who tries to rescue them at the beginning dies and transfers something to her. I don't know. Anyway, they end up in this underground lair where it turns out the record producer is using all these gold records to summon the devil or something. Oh wow, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't. You got 18 seconds to figure it out.
Anyway, yeah, he's doing that, and then they destroy the last record, and they go back to space.
Because they like Captain Planet, their ghost friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they go back to space. Yeah. Yep. There you go.
There we go.
Great.
And then in the end, we see like a little boy dreaming of Daft Punk.
Yeah.
Which is really cute.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's I guess a cohesive plot going on. But it's hard to remember the details because it just takes a turn.
Can I, by the way, mention that he has kidnapped aliens from all over the place?
That's what I thought you were going to say. I was trying to help you, and then you went a different direction.
No, I was trying to remember what he was trying to do. The difficult thing about this is that there's no dialogue, and these songs do not explain what's going on because they weren't written for this story in the first place.
Kind of feels like the Transformers movie soundtrack, where you're like,
a little bit.
Well, why is Dare to Be Stupid playing now? That doesn't have anything to do with what's going on.
Right.
But they just liked the beat, I guess. Which is, to be fair, is basically what Daft Punk does, is beats. Like, yeah, and each of their songs has like a total of 10 words in them.
I had a good time with this. I really enjoyed watching it. I liked it. Like, Fantasia has these individual bits where there's a story and there's some song. The Interstella, it's nice because it's a full story. And it's a simple enough story that you can generally follow it. And the details aren't actually important.
No.
I don't know what this guy is doing with these gold records.
He's been kidnapping. I mean, right? It's revealed that he was behind Mozart, right? Yeah. Mozart was an alien he kidnapped and turned into Mozart. Yeah. This guy is an immortal. Mozart with Jimi Hendrix, Aretha Franklin. They go through this whole.
So it's all these people.
Is Daft Punk in that too? Is that one of the jokes?
I don't know. But so he uses all these gold records and he's doing something with them, and it doesn't really matter what.
See, I missed that he was doing something with the gold records. Oh. Over just getting independently wealthy.
Yeah, when he was at the end, when he was in that giant sacrifice chamber.
Oh yeah.
And all the pillars were coated in gold records because he needed them to complete some sort of ritual or something.
The thing about this night that we watched these movies were too many film tracks. We watched Yellow Submarine and Interstella back to back, and my brain was worn out after Yellow Submarine.
I would describe you as having a lower tolerance than me.
To these movies. Yeah. So by the end of this movie, I was just kind of letting it wash over me, which was fun. Yeah. And fine.
But so my point is, Interstella has a plot. It doesn't none of the details matter, and I think that's something that's done really well.
So what do you think is the reason? So these two movies, taking Fantasia out of it, the Yellow Submarine and Interstella are single band movies. Interstella is it commissioned by Daft Punk? Or I guess, why do you make a movie of each of these bands' music, and why do you make these movies from these bands' musics?
That's a great question.
Because Yellow Submarine is not the Beatles producing it.
Right.
It has an Apple Music producing credit, but that might just be because the songs are in it, and that's an automatic part of the contract.
Right, and they appear in it. Anything. I think Beatles are producers technically on Beatles Rock Band.
Okay.
Because anything Beatles, they get
right. But it wasn't John said to Paul, let's make an animated movie. It was someone else came up with the idea, pitched it. They said, yeah, why not?
So this was, Interstella was written and produced by Daft Punk.
Okay.
And directed by someone else.
By a Japanese director, is that correct?
Yeah. Wikipedia does not have any information on him, so I don't know what else he did. But I do know this was by Toei Animation, who did, among other things, Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, and more recently One Piece, I believe. So they've got a long anime history.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we said before this point, you might have, that this is an anime style animation.
Yeah.
I mean, on the Daft Punk one.
Yeah, it's anime.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous in all the cool ways that anime is, but also like a little cheap because it's TV anime, right? Like it's a company that mainly does, or is mainly known by me for TV shows. So.
And how did this premiere? I'm sorry, I'm just asking you to like look up Wikipedia
yeah,
information.
You really
I could have
are.
looked up before. Did either of these have theatrical releases? Probably the Beatles one.
I don't know.
Well, listener, that's a challenge for you.
Yeah.
You're going to look
Kate,
up.
you're asking me a lot of questions that I don't have answers to.
So, okay, here's a hypothetical
But your
question.
initial question.
Yeah, is why make these films? The Beatles one I see because it's money. Money's the reason to make that film, right? Like, you put anything with the Beatles name on it out in the 60s and people are going to pay to see it. They're going to pay for the soundtrack and the merchandise or whatever. So that makes sense. And it makes sense why why their songs are kind of shoehorned into a plot that's barely a plot. It's just like, all right, let's put in another Beatles song. Let's put in this Beatles song. What about this one?
Well, let's just put in them all. It's
like
great.
it's the same premise of Across the Universe of like, well, how many Beatles songs can we fit into this plot loosely that kind of mirrors something of the Beatles?
Right.
But I do think Across the Universe does it more seamlessly than Yellow Submarine, the movie where the Beatles are more directly involved.
Yeah.
Which is too bad.
Yeah.
So is it money? Like, do you find any other reasons why this is made?
For Interstella?
No. So
For the
Yellow Submarine,
I have no idea.
Okay.
I did zero research on Yellow Submarine. I'm.
Do you have any guesses as someone who likes the Beatles slightly more than I do?
Yeah, I mean, the Beatles were really into the psychedelic art scene. It was a psychedelic art movie.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was just pitched to them, and they were like, "Yeah." It seems right up their alley, and it was well received. Like we did not enjoy watching this movie.
But everyone in 1968 did.
Yeah, it was well received in general. I thought it was just very clunky to me, but a lot of people really loved it, and
it is John Lennon's favorite Beatle movie.
Yeah, John Lennon's wrong about a lot of things involving the Beatles.
He said his child enjoyed, like Sean Lennon, who at the time was a child, like his child enjoyed it, which tells me more about all the other stuff Sean Lennon saw as a child.
Sean Lennon did not get to. Well,
this movie is scary. Like, it's visually unsettling.
Well,
not like jump scare, but like, oh, those like dinosaur Frankenstein monsters.
So I would say that it is not any scarier than other British animation at the time.
Okay.
Because it was all fucking terrifying.
Are Sid and Marty Krofft, are they British?
I don't know, but like
honorary
Phantom Tollbooth made me very uncomfortable. There was like a lot of like English stuff that just English animation made me very uncomfortable. I think that was the point, but I hated it. Yeah. In general.
Yeah. We watched as part of that marathon night of Breaking Our Brains, we did watch some of the letter people.
Yeah, the things that we watched as children to learn about letters, I guess.
They're puppets against usually a black background
so uncomfortable.
That just look haunting, and they sing a minute of a song that loosely ties into the letter that they are. Like, it's like, no Sesame Street, I'll tell you that.
Mr. C kept saying like letters, he kept saying words with K's.
Yeah. And he was using like C blend words. Like, this is not how you teach about the letter C.
Like, children are not learning anything from this. And one of the like G or something was like, "Oh, I'm gregarious," and I'm like, "Who a kid knows gregarious?"
It doesn't seem like any educators were involved in this. But it's that same like psychedelic nightmare fuel that this movie was.
So I will say the Daft Punk album. So they came up with the idea of doing the doing the movie as they were coming up with the album. Okay. Even though the story isn't really tied together.
Doesn't really relate to how they
but they pitched it to Toei, and they wanted to work with a animator / director who did like a bunch of stuff that they loved as kids. And this debuted on Cartoon Network.
That makes sense.
And that happened in the early 2000s when like Cartoon Network, I feel like, was like 90% anime. Like there was a time where Cartoon Network was just Yu Yu Hakusho, and
it was before all their original content, and
not so much.
No.
But like Toonami blew up, and it was just a ton of. They had like a 2 or 3 hour anime block every day or something like it. It was a lot.
All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, this makes sense. I actually like a lot of things click into place when it comes to light that it's Cartoon Network debut as opposed to like, so seems like it was kind of just a fun project. Like,
honestly, yeah,
we are successful enough and have enough money that we can commission our own anime movie, and so we're gonna do it.
Yeah,
I respect that.
Yeah, I really do.
Yeah,
it was fun.
And it's a fun that kidnapping and brainwashing plot is fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a good time in this movie. To me, like, I can respect Daft Punk, just being like, we have the money. There's no reason for it to be their music over it, over anyone else's. Like, I don't think their music adds anything specifically, except for the fact that it is primarily just kind of dance.
Yeah.
It's not technically trance music, but it's that same kind of like, it's super repetitive, and it's not about lyrics. It's
just
about
like 2 songs I think worked really well. Because the first one is One More Time. It's just, and the scene is it's a band playing a song.
Yeah.
So great.
Yeah.
Whatever song you put there is going to be fine. And then the next one is I think called Aerodynamic. And it starts with like a pretty intense but weird sounding like keyboard guitar. And that was like during a fight scene. And I thought like anytime their music was in a fight scene, I was like, yo, this is great. This is high energy. This is fun. Or like a chase scene or whatever. But like, yeah, there were times where I was just like, okay, I don't need Daft Punk right here.
And to me, their music, because I don't know as much of it and I'm not really into that kind of music, you could have told me like, oh, they extended One More Time into an hour-long mix for this movie. I would have been like, sure.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They, I knew the Stronger, Better, Faster, Stronger, whatever part.
Stronger, Better,
like,
Faster,
they're
Stronger.
like sampling that Kanye West song in the middle of One More Time. So like you said, after the first 2 songs, it doesn't, to me, my ears aren't hearing anything different. And it doesn't matter because now I'm following the story.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like background music. But it creates like a trance-like thing where I'm like, my one sensory input is this and my other sensory input, and it doesn't match. So I need to ignore something.
You know what it really reminds me of? Is like, if I am playing a video game that doesn't have a lot of dialogue and doesn't really have great music, I'll put on a podcast or I'll put on music and I'll listen to some music while playing a game. I do this a lot. So that's kind of what it reminded me of. Like there's a story unfolding and I'm listening to a Daft Punk album.
Yeah.
And I'm having fun and it's not bothering me.
Yeah.
But I would say that very rarely is it cohesive.
Right.
Where I'm like, oh, this couldn't be done with any other song.
Right.
It's
or
more
like, oh, this is a cool moment for this song to be playing.
Yeah.
There's not.
It's more like, oh, cool, I'm enjoying this. I'm listening to music that's pretty good, and I'm watching a thing that's pretty good.
Yeah.
These are 2 experiences I am enjoying.
I guess the other part where it isn't the Stronger, Better, Faster.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's
that's
when
really
the evil guy is transforming them from blue aliens to these
humans.
mega stars that look like humans.
Yeah.
Like, he redoes their skin and like transplants human memories into their...
This song is, like building to that. Like, that's a really cool placement.
Yeah.
But there's some other scenes where I'm just like,
oh, okay,
I don't know what's going on.
Synthesized instruments.
Great.
With a boom, boom, boom,
yeah.
boom. Yeah.
Yeah.
One question this answers, each of these movies, including Fantasia, Dick, I think answers the question of what is the prevalent drug available in this decade? Like working my way backwards from Daft Punk, right? Mm-hmm. This kind of trance, like this just loud music kind of blaring out everything else, and you can only kind of half focus on the story is very much. I've never taken a club drug, but I feel like scenes in TV and movies where like someone has taken a drug at a club kind of produce this effect. That's like everything's a little blurry and none of your senses work well.
To be clear, we're not throwing aspersions about any of the creators. Because I have no idea who does what.
No,
but absolutely, it's like, oh, cool. It's like an ecstasy movie,
and no aspersions if you're taking those drugs and making the movie.
Oh yeah, no. Have
right,
fun, please.
Do what you gotta do.
Yeah, this is not like we're not being like, ugh. No, absolutely.
But there were some scenes too that was just like there were like strobe lights and like blurry vision. I'm like, oh, okay, I see what's happening. Moving back, Yellow Submarine. All about the psychotropic hallucinogenics.
You got to do something to make that movie better.
And when you say we're missing context, I think that is one of the contexts we're missing, that we weren't high on mushrooms. When we were watching it.
I don't know. Users, listeners, write in. I'm like about to be 38. I feel like I'm too old to start doing mushrooms, but feel free to argue back, because something's got to.
Or if like give. Yellow Submarine will just blow our mind with just a little bit of LSD.
Yeah, we'll try it. Kate especially.
Nah, that's probably false.
But yeah, so Yellow Submarine, and then Fantasia. What did we decide on? Like opiates?
Yeah, I said alcohol. You said opiates, and opiates is a stronger case because. Yeah. There are some scenes in this that are not far from the pink elephants on parade in Dumbo.
There's a little bit going on,
which is definitely opiate influenced.
But there's also like, like you said, when you were on strong painkillers, you enjoyed Fantasia
was great.
The most.
Yeah, that is true.
I don't know what painkillers you were on, but there's a possibility that they were opiates.
Oh man! Mm-hmm. All right, well, that's a thesis. That's
a thesis.
That's a thesis.
So let me get this out there. Fantasia is a movie with a bunch of little stories. Yellow Submarine is a movie with one through story. Same with Interstella 5555. Let's talk about some of the reasons that Yellow Submarine doesn't work for us, because I think it needs to be addressed. Because I understand. I bet if you are a fan of animation and you're like, can you believe this is the animation that was happening in that time, or something, like there's a person that really appreciates this, and it's just not necessarily us. Mm-hmm. Why didn't it work for you? What did not work about it for you?
I mean, I think this is all varying degrees of, what I think our challenges for any movie that's essentially a film track.
Right.
Is that I don't like. And Yellow Submarine, its particular, I guess, fatal flaw for me is that it doesn't have any plot that I care about.
Right.
And any time that it does, they're just meddling with it and twisting with it to the point where I'm like, oh, cool, you had me, but I no longer care. Yeah. Like, you're taking too many stops.
Would you say that the dialogue helped you understand?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Because it was a lot of gibberish.
Uh-huh.
And, it's people do an impression of the Beatles who do not have the greatest speaking voice enunciation. So between the accent and like half the words they're saying are nonsense words anyway.
And also it was like not loud enough. Like the difference between the mumbly dialogue and the audio and the like music was crazy pants.
Yeah.
Like the music was.
Yeah, we had to like.
Blaringly loud.
Bring it up, like 5 or 6 notches?
Yeah, we were watching it like
every time
an 18, or we were actually like at 20 for dialogue and then like at 14 for music.
Yeah.
I couldn't hear the movie.
Yeah. So I mean, but that's a mixing like old movies. We've had that problem with other old
But
movies.
not that bad.
Not that bad. No.
Because most movies aren't.
It just reminds. So probably my first, or like my most salient first interaction with the Beatles was actually in a computer game that I showed you a clip of like a week or two ago from the 90s, where like you were solving mysteries and you went in a jungle and then you found these like weird slugs or some kind of like goopy guys who talked like the Beatles. And then they sang this like really creepy song. And I just thought it was the creepiest thing. So even when you make that voice, like that Beatles impression, I'm like, scared. Like,
so
those voices are very creepy to me.
I would say that like another interesting point where the Beatles are just all the time is cartoons, specifically Animaniacs. Wacko is just like a Beatles impression.
Just kind of like a Ringo. Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
that's it. That's the entire voice.
Yeah.
And that happens like fairly often.
But Wacko is funny.
Yeah, I agree.
Beatles. So it's a combination, right? It's like it's my least favorite thing.
I argue that the Beatles are funny because those other movies are funny. I swear to God.
Not the writing on this one. So this movie consists of puns.
Yeah.
Nightmare character designs. Lots of morphing and like poor setups for Beatles songs. Like,
yeah,
that's basically what this whole movie is.
Let's talk about those song setups.
Just a rotating cycle.
You mentioned it earlier, but let's talk about those song setups because that's the thing that bummed me out the most. Like you made me watch Across the Universe.
I sure did.
I don't think it's very good.
I understand.
But the songs, most of them in Across the Universe kind of come in a way that makes sense or a way that's like earned. Mm-hmm. But in Yellow Submarine, like the one you said earlier, the Beatles, they go across like a time loop thing and they all age.
Well, first they Benjamin Button.
First they become super tiny / young. It's unclear. Uh-huh. And then they age to be very old. Mm-hmm. Like I would say Methuselah, hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
And then they sing out of nowhere When I'm 64 starts playing.
And they have a bunch of hair. Like their white hair grows out to these like
they
bushy...
are covered in hair.
Yeah.
And the first lyric is, when I get old and losing my hair.
No, they sure aren't.
Like, they are not. None of them are losing their hair. They have a ton.
No.
So it's just like stuff like that where I'm just annoyed by the bad setups.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of
there's no song that's set up better. Like,
no.
They're all, maybe Yellow Submarine, because it's just like, oh, Yellow Submarine, this thing is starting.
Yeah.
It's a little goofy to start. But like the All You Need Is Love, that like
they
somehow
take
materializing the letters like Sesame Street style.
They say glove.
You have these like 3D letters.
And the word glove appears.
And then they literally remove the letter G because all you need is love.
And
then they start the song and it's rough. Yeah. I guess to answer your original question, this movie doesn't work for me because they don't even know what they want to do with it. I don't see a point.
Oh God.
Oh, are you remembering things that you don't want to remember?
Nowhere Man.
Oh my God. I had blocked that out. Thanks a lot.
They end up in like, this is why I'm saying it reminds me of like Phantom Tollbooth or any of those other like
white background.
Any of those like books and movies for kids that like words and you're rewarded for like being clever. Because they meet this guy who's,
what's his name? Justin?
He's got he's like Dr. Jeremy.
Sorry.
Boob.
Yeah,
something.
they say boob a lot. But he's like a furry brown creature with a blue
He looks a lot
mask.
like a Blue Meanie.
He does.
But brown.
Yeah. But his mask is blue.
Yeah. And he speaks in rhyme and riddle, and it's just really annoying.
Just out of like a Lewis Carroll something, and it's not fun.
That's it. It's bad Lewis. It's annoying Lewis Carroll.
Bad Lewis Carroll.
That's absolutely what this is, though. It's like, ooh, we're doing twisty words and things, rah, rah, rah. And it's like, I don't.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And he says all this gibberish, and then they go, "Oh, you're a nowhere man, going to nowhere land."
He's a real nowhere. Like, nothing.
It's a lot of eye rolls. This movie has a lot of eye rolls for me.
There is no reason for the Beatles to be involved in this movie.
No.
Like, there's no reason for a Beatles song to be in this.
No. It doesn't make... Again, why? Just money. Why? Money.
I mean, art.
Money and art.
I firmly believe that this is not a money grab.
But still, out of context, like... I was a 22-year-old who had just moved to New York and went to MoMA and went to all these contemporary art museums and stumbled through them, and I thought every video display I saw was really clever and like deep, and now I'm like, oh, you're doing that again? Like, and right? Like, this movie predates the stuff I was seeing by 40 years, but I'm oh, this is just like pretentious contemporary art museum displays.
I think the reason the Beatles are involved is because this is just my guess. They were into the art scene. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, sure, they got paid a little bit for this or whatever, but like, this brought so much more attention to this different style and these different ideas of what animation was and animation could be. Yeah. And it would not have gotten any attention if the Beatles weren't involved.
You know, take it with a grain of salt because of who it is, but John Lasseter credits this movie with making animation more like viewed as more of a serious medium to adults, as opposed to it just being for kids. Yeah. So again, it's Lasseter, but
Kate.
Whereas Daft Punk, I don't super understand it. It's not super for me. No. But I kind of get it. Yeah. But I think it does suffer the same challenge as like it's not specifically made for one another. Right. Nothing like but it falls short in a different way than Yellow Submarine does, where they're trying to shoehorn songs. They're not trying to shoehorn songs with Daft Punk, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, no one says, "Oh man, let's do this one more time."
And so it benefits from that, but it also is just like it's only an hour long, this one. Yeah. Beatles was 90 minutes. That was way too long.
Another great thing about the Daft Punk one. It's like an hour.
It's an hour.
Or 70 minutes,
but
something.
Like at the 40-minute mark, I can't tell you really what else happened. Like only really strong visual. Like I remember the dead blue fan turning into like that Captain Planet style ghost and giving them power. But, like, I tuned out, like, my brain stopped. Right. Because there's no dialogue to hang on to. And again, there's more cohesive story, but just the things aren't matching.
Yeah, and it's hard paying attention
I'm out.
When there's no break in it. One thing that's interesting about Fantasia is, like, for better or for worse, there's just a dude that talks to you between songs. Yeah. So it's like, hey, take a little break from listening to music and listen to some dialogue. Okay, cool. You heard some dialogue. Let's go back to the music. You got like a little music break. Well, you get like when you're at like wine tasting and you have like a sip of water between palate the wines. Cleanser. Yeah, palate cleanser. Thank you.
I think also what helps Fantasia, and it's 2 hours, and that's too long. Like we turned this on at the beginning of the podcast, and we're like, oh, this goes the whole movie. We're done. Like. No. But I will say each segment is in a different animation style, like less so than Fantasia 2000, which I think is more diverse in its animation styles. But at least like we're watching the Pegasuses now in.
It's a different story.
Yeah. And it looks different than the Sorcerer's Apprentice, and it looks different than the stuff they were doing in the Nutcracker Suite, and so even if this one thing isn't your thing, you know, about 8 minutes from now, it's going to be something different. Right. So it's a reactivate every 8 minutes, and then you might kind of zone out again. But, but yeah, I think, I've never been, though, the type of person who can, like, sit through an orchestral concert. Like, I need words, or I need, like, really programmatic music where it's like, when you hear the timpani come in, the composer meant this. Like, I need, like, I mean, Peter and the Wolf has narration, but I need something like that where I'm like, okay, cello means this, and timpani means this, or, like, this motif, this, like, little melody means that this character or this emotion.
So you wouldn't just go to, like, a choir concert?
Dick, I like singing in choirs. This is, sorry, as a music teacher, this is not going to get me fired. But no, I don't really care about going to live concerts if it's not musical theater.
Interesting.
I don't. Like,
I love seeing bands. I
need to know 80% or more of the songs.
Oh, yeah.
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 Like, I either need to know most, if not all of the songs, or I need to know none of the songs, but just know that it's a genre I'm interested in.
Yeah.
Like, I'm the guy that watches the opening bands because I'm excited to see if they're good. And then when they're not good, I leave for a while and then come back. But, like, it's that's interesting that you're less interested in. Well, I mean, music you can listen to any way you want, and or create any way you want. There's no rule that says you can only go see it in a theater. Right. Same with movies. Same with anything, right?
Although it used to be, right? Like talking about context, when the time of when Fantasia comes out, there's not really recorded music that's easily it's a new thing,
right? To
have like records of your favorite orchestral suites, and so it was a thing that like you would go to an orchestra concert, to the Philharmonic or whatever,
right,
to hear this Beethoven piece that you really love. You don't have it on repeat at home,
right?
And again, like I'd have to look up the when record players go into homes. Yeah, those are just boobs on the Pegasus half. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of nudity in this scene.
This movie, strangely, like, does Fantasia have nips? I thought it did.
It could be that we're watching this on Disney Plus. So, guys,
we're
in the Pegasus scene that has like the mer Pegasuses. What is it? What's that creature called? The centaurs.
Centaurs.
Yeah. So we're in the centaurs, and there's a lot of boobs
butt.
and lots of butts.
But this one Pegasus was like, she was drying off and she was like
full
shaking her boobs and shaking her butt.
Yeah. This is a scene you cannot show to children in your sub-plans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, you skip this scene. Also, it's just really, there's so many naked babies.
Just a lot of naked babies.
Oh, man.
You don't see, like, genitalia, just butts.
A nice hat, though.
Yeah, she got a hat out of a flower. He's peeling off a tree.
Okay, I'm done narrating this.
See if you can find where we're at in the time code.
Cool. Kate, do you have anything more to add on these two movies?
I don't.
Okay,
I don't. I think we need to move on.
Yeah, we're gonna make this a shorter podcast. Kate, let me ask you one more question, yes. Kate. You're a big fan of musical theater, and
sure am. You
have a definition of what you consider to be, let's say, contemporary musical theater, which is kind of the not Alan Menken but Howard Ashman, when you can't speak anymore, you sing, and that is the reason that you break into song, and that's the only reason that you break into song, is because you need to express something through song. You are less a fan of non-traditional musical theater or older musical theater.
No, super traditional musical theater.
Where there's just music because there's a song here. How do you feel? We've watched Yellow Submarine, which is not at all a musical.
No.
And then we've got Fantasia on in the background. We watched the Daft Punk movie, which I keep... Interstella.
5,555 Stellas.
No. So and we watched Interstella. What do you feel about the way? Do you think there's potential for a movie to work in that way, in the way of like, here is a bunch of music. This is all we're doing. And it's set to an album and we have no dialogue or anything like that. Like, does that work as a movie?
So what you're describing, the only successful version of what you're describing.
I don't know what I'm saying.
No. But the only successful version of what you're describing is the show Moving Out, that at least that I've seen.
Okay.
Is Moving Out, right? It's a jukebox stage musical of Billy Joel music, but it was it's essentially a ballet.
Yeah.
There's not, if I'm remembering it correctly, there is little to, I think, no dialogue spoken by the actors.
Okay.
It's just a guy, like a Billy Joel stand-in at a piano who is singing all the songs. It's not even like American Idiot where you have like a chorus or anything. It's a guy singing all the songs. About
American Idiot.
Yeah. And it's just dancers dancing. Like there's I think it's, is Tony moving out? Is that the character in the song? Anyway, there's a guy who like moves out. It's very similar to Across the Universe in how it approaches its plot. It's just kind of like a coming of age story through a few different decades. Someone has a drug problem because there's a Billy Joel song about a drug problem, right? Like, and I think it worked. Again, I take this with a grain of salt because I saw it when I was 16, and you know, everything's great when you're 16.
Yeah. You're seeing your first Broadway.
But I think it worked in the way. I think it worked in the way that the Daft Punk movie works. In that, like, okay, this thing that I'm hearing is not super related to this thing that I'm seeing. Like, you're using two different mediums and you're not mixing them in terms of like the dancers are not singing and the Billy Joel piano player is not dancing.
Right.
But this is working for me. And because Billy Joel songs are tiny musicals, right? Like he has story songs. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Would I now in my 30s? I don't know. But that would be to me like a jukebox style movie would be, and that's like I understand all the criticisms of Across the Universe, and I don't love it as much as I used to.
Give you more
as a late teens, early 20s person, but I think it works better than Yellow Submarine, for certain, and it is a potential blueprint for what you're describing, and the question you're asking is that you kind of make this loose. It's more of a pastiche than anything else, where the characters aren't important and more their archetypes are. Because in Across the Universe, you have different stand-ins, and it takes place across the decade of the Beatles' music career. And you have like the straight-laced kid, and you have the hippie, and you have the one who goes into the military, and you have the one who gets addicted to drugs. Like all these things that are kind of splotchy represented in multiple Beatles songs that you can kind of tie together as the threads through the songs.
Nice.
But I don't think any of these three movies does what I just described.
No, I would agree. Okay, cool. Let's wrap this up. Let's do final cuts.
Final cuts?
And Kate, I'm going to let you go first because I like you so much.
Yeah.
Can you give me a scene shout out for Yellow Submarine? And also remind me what my scene shout out was?
Yeah.
Because I had one, but I can't remember it now.
Oh, I'm going to take it. No, I'll remind you of what it was. All right. Scene shout out for Yellow Submarine. I will say when, oh man, I need the soundtrack up. It was whatever song I recognized first after Yellow Submarine. Because the first, this movie's 90 minutes long. I think the first half hour of it maybe only has one Beatles song. Like, I think it's just Yellow Submarine.
Weirdly spread out.
And there's a long break of the really hard to understand dialogue.
Oh no,
and
like
some really trippy.
Eleanor Rigby is
right away.
Like right away.
What's after Eleanor Rigby?
Day in the Life would be the next one, you know?
Oh, I don't know that song.
All Together Now?
Yeah, I don't. Whatever. It might have been Eleanor Rigby, or it was. See, I can't even remember.
Doesn't matter.
But it was a Beatles song that broke up this like just hot mess of plot and dialogue and scary visual that I'm like, oh, it's a Beatles song. I like part of what my senses are taking in right now.
Well, like I like some of this.
And this is, we talked about this throughout the movie, that we're just kind of waiting for the next song to come in. Because then it's at least something to anchor us, something familiar. And it doesn't even have to be oh, I know all the words to this song, but it's some kind of familiar when the narrative structure is so foreign and the visual style is so foreign. It's like, oh, I get this. Even if I don't know this specific Beatles song, there's a framework to it. It has a steady beat. It has like something to anchor. So I will say, that first song. Let's call it Eleanor Rigby.
Great. Yeah.
Would you like a hint, Dick?
Yeah.
So toward the end of the film, but
I
not
feel
at
like
the
it's
end.
someone getting hurt or something, right?
There's a bubble around the Sgt. Pepper Lonely Hearts Club Band.
Yeah.
And the Beatles are there.
Uh-huh. Please tell me.
Oh,
I
thought
don't remember.
This was the Beatles are there and they're trying to break the bubble.
Yeah.
And so the first thing they do is just try to ram it with their bodies. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they try to like punch it with their fists or with the instruments they have. And then, Ringo finds the hole in its pocket and attaches it to the side.
That's my scene shout out. I like when they just
You
ram
called
it with
it in
their
the
bodies.
film.
Yeah. It's funny. I like physical humor, and
It was again, if you hadn't already called it and then forgotten it, but that would have been mine too, because it legitimately made me laugh. It was a funny moment. It reminds me of what you describe as the other movies that I have not seen, Hard Day's Night. And
where it's just like kind of wacky and fun and a little
silly.
slapstick and silly over anything else. It was great. I also kind of like that Ringo has a hole in his pocket. He has like a portable hole that he can put places because it reminds me of Roger Rabbit, a much better movie.
Yeah. It's that kind of cartoony.
Okay, what about Interstella 555?
Yeah, I really liked the scene. Like, you think you know what the movie's about. Like, this guy has brainwashed these aliens into becoming this, like, super pop band that makes him lots of money. And then that twist where they, like, look into that, like, volcano gorge and they, like, see all of these past kidnappings that he's done. Like,
every great artist.
Mozart was an alien. Oh, Hendrix. Oh, Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
Oh, like, and it's like, oh, this is a bigger thing than just this one band. That was kind of a cool moment. It didn't really go anywhere.
Right.
Like,
because, like, dialogue could have helped that.
Sure.
But it was neat to have a twist in a movie without a single word of dialogue.
Yeah, where I wasn't expecting there to be a twist. I was more expecting just kind of a landscape.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
Dick, what about you?
My scene shout out's going to be the stronger, faster, louder, faster, stronger. I don't know the name of that song either.
It's just a bunch of adjectives.
But yeah, that scene, as we said earlier, is just super, like, it's effective because the song is kind of talking about what's happening, but not directly talking about what's happening. And it really, I feel like this movie really works for like 3 or 4 songs and then kind of like falls off where it's like, okay, these songs are just kind of songs now. Which is fine. But yeah, I think that's one where it really worked. Yeah.
Just for fun, you have Fantasia scene shout out?
Yeah, Chernobog.
Oh yeah, you love that guy.
Yeah, he's a giant demon and he's awesome. And I had a shirt of him from when I was like 8 to when I was like 16 and could no longer wear it.
He's the knight on Bald Mountain. That big.
He's a giant cool demon.
Yeah.
I will find that shirt again.
Yeah. Too Many Brooms.
Too Many Brooms.
It's mine.
Yeah.
Just went like the Mickey animation in this. This is the first instance of Mickey with eye whites and pupils, as opposed to just the black beady
pupils.
eyes. Yeah. And I think this is like one of the only, prior to like this new 2010s cartoon of Mickey, this like reboot, this is one of the only sequences where I'm like, Mickey. Yeah, I love Mickey. Any other cartoon he's in, I'm like, I don't care about Mickey. But like, he's genuinely shell-shocked by this, like, oh no, now I have too many brooms.
Yeah. Too many brooms.
Oh, it's so fun.
All right, Kate.
Yep.
If you've got an MVP.
MVP. I'm trying to spell it with my hands, and I'm not being successful.
It's working great. If you had an MVP to pick from these 2 movies, be it a character, a director, a voice actor, if there's a voice actor you particularly loved in either of these, Yeah, who would your MVP of these two movies be?
Oh boy. Billy Joel?
I don't think he was involved. Not directly, anyway.
You know what? Let's credit Walt Disney because you probably haven't heard of him.
He's not even involved in either of these.
But
no,
I do
no,
feel
no,
like we
no,
found
no.
in our research. Okay, then this will be my runner-up. This will be
Okay.
an honorary mention because I do feel like in the research for both of these movies, people cited, oh, well, Fantasia was one of the inspirations for us to do this movie. For both Yellow Submarine, and I think I found it for Interstella as well.
Okay.
And if not, you know, it's clearly influenced by that. So this was Walt. That was Walt's idea. That's nice. That's honorary mention. I guess the director of Interstella, I guess, like he did a great job telling a visual story, which is not easy to do.
Right.
But it's one of the things that I think good animated movies do best is that even if the sound is off, even if you're listening to a different language, even if you're listening to a Daft Punk album over your movie, you should still be able to know what's going on. And the animation is very clear in this movie. It's great visual storytelling. So good work. Do you have a name?
Yeah. Well, the director of this was Kazuhisa Takanouchi.
Okay.
Who's not a name I know, and he doesn't have a Wikipedia entry. But the guy who like supervised, produced it, who Daft Punk were like, yo, you got to be on this movie. His name is Leiji Matsumoto. He is probably most famous for doing Space Battleship Yamato. But he's done like a ton of stuff, including that, obviously, Submarine Super 99, Galaxy Express 999. A lot of nines.
So he just does numbers in
He does
his
numbers,
movies.
yeah. He does numbers and transportation.
Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Nice.
That's your MVP?
No, my MVP is, hold on, I'm finding his actual name, Beryl.
Oh.
Beryl is the guy that we called Chunk.
Chunk.
He's the chubby little drummer of the band, and he's funny.
Yeah.
And also he has...
He looks like a Smurf.
Yeah, he looks like Krillin from Dragon Ball.
I don't even know who that is, but I know who you're talking about.
You know, yeah. He has or like a baby Goku. He has no eye whites. He just has pupils.
Old Mickey eyes.
He has old Mickey eyes, and he's just he's like an archetype that I like. And I think I said to you at the beginning, I'm like, oh, if there's a chubby character in an anime, he's the best character. So yeah,
neat.
Yeah.
Dick, if you were to do a crossover between the two movies, Yellow Submarine and Daft Punk, any kind of mixing of creative minds or characters or elements, what would your crossover be?
Oh, that's surprisingly hard. You know what? I would cross over Chunk and Ringo, and I would just send them on an adventure together.
Oh, they would both love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're both kind of like the... I was pointing at you to talk while I was trying to sneeze.
Oh,
it's okay.
I got confused.
You didn't know that.
And you were just pointing at me. I got scared.
No, because they're both kind of like the lesser member of the band. They're both drummers.
They're both drummers, yeah.
And I think they'd have fun being like kind of dopey and weird together. Yeah. What about you, Kate? Crossover.
I think it would be fun to have the plot of Interstella onto Yellow Submarine, where the Beatles get kidnapped by aliens and get or like the Beatles are the super group, right?
Yeah.
That and then it becomes the movie Yesterday where the Beatles never existed. And no, I think that would be fun to have I feel like, okay, here's what I want. Maybe a new movie.
Okay, I liked what you were doing there already.
Yeah, where it's Beatles songs, but it turns out that the Beatles are... Or it's like a stand-in for the Beatles, right? Kind of like, now I'm trying to think.
Like in Sgt. Pepper's where they're played by the Bee Gees?
Yeah, maybe like that. But it's like a stand-in for the Beatles, but it turns out that they were kidnapped aliens and this evil record producer is making... I feel like that would be the good late 60s Beatles movie. I guess it's probably live action then too, but yeah, it just seems bonkers and more fun than what Yellow Submarine did. Yeah.
Nice.
Kidnap aliens, turn them into the Beatles.
Cool.
See what happens.
I'd see that.
'Cause I don't have any more ideas. Dick, it is now time for the final cut. It is.
Thank God. I'm tired. It's been a long day, yo.
Film checks are hard.
Yeah, it's hard not having, like, really, I'm not in love with any character from any of these. Like, I love Chunk, but he doesn't say anything. He doesn't do too much. I just like his design.
Because the music is the most important character in each of these movies. Like
actually, I think New York City is. Oh God, nice.
Boom.
Great minds. All right, Kate. So final cut. Let's start with Yellow Submarine. What do you do with this movie? Do you A, re-release it for everyone to see, or B, do a special edition?
Or C.
Oh, or C, throw it in the vault, never to be seen again. What do you do, Kate?
Controversial. I'm going to get a lot of people angry at me, but
That's
I'm going to vault it. Hey, go watch Across the Universe instead.
Oh.
You want a Beatles movie? Watch Across the Universe.
Oh, I liked your answer until there.
This is going to be our first Cellmates podcast death threat episode.
Yeah. Cool. What a choice. I don't vault it.
You hated this movie more than I did. I was giving it a benefit of the doubt.
I special edition it where I put it in a museum. No. Here's what I want. I don't want to watch this movie ever again.
No.
But I do want to watch a YouTube video essay explaining to me what was good about this movie.
Yeah, and what it influenced. I feel like, yeah.
So
I want that.
Yeah, like vault the movie. I don't care about it, but I do want, and maybe I could find that. It's probably
we didn't. I was
there.
gonna say we just need to do a YouTube search for it.
But like, I would like to see a really well curated thing saying like, look, this movie doesn't really hold up, but here's the stuff that was really revolutionary at the time.
I like that.
What about Interstella 5555, the 5 egret five system?
This is hard because I don't mind this movie. Like, it's not for me.
Yeah.
But I don't mind it. So, like, indifference maybe makes it a re-release, but
like, would you change anything about it?
I guess in a special edition perfect world, I would make it more I would make the music tie in together with the scenes a little bit better, like that Stronger, Faster scene.
Yeah.
And maybe they do when I'm just not as familiar with Daft Punk. Like, I'm not listening for the lyrics.
Like, lyrically, it did not seem that they were all...
But also, like, again, you could tell me that there were no lyrics in it after the Stronger, Better scene. I'd be like, yeah, I didn't hear any. Yeah. There were probably other words in the movie.
But it was
I missed them. So maybe it's being more familiar with that album and, like, following along with the words.
But musically, it did feel samey.
Yeah.
Where, like, as a comparison, these are full-on musicals, but Hamilton and In the Heights are like musicals with rap.
Yeah.
But they're not just rap.
Right.
Like, there's some other things interspersed in there.
Yeah, and so I guess, like, I don't know, Daft Punk seems to like to tell stories. They, they had an accident and became robots. Like, you're telling me that they can't write some slight musical theater to go, like, not musical theater in terms of, but like, even just I'm like, a blue alien singing a song.
Cool, this is an acoustic song or something. Just something to break.
But it's going to go, like, I feel like they could write a good score as opposed to just play this album over. I
believe they won an Oscar for the score to Tron Legacy.
So there you go. So maybe my answer to this question, Dick, is Tron Legacy.
Let's watch Tron Legacy.
Yeah, but I think if they had gone in with the intention of here are the scene beats and here's the music that needs to go with them, I think we could have had a lot more of that, like, neat synergy, if you will, of music and visual.
Nice.
What do you do?
As for me, I re-release it specifically to be watched by me when I'm like pretty tired but not ready for bed yet. I feel like it's
a good sleepy time.
This like Interstella in a way took me back to like my like staying up till 2 a.m. to watch anime on Cartoon Network days. So like I'll watch this late at night, like on one monitor while I'm playing a video game on another monitor. Or I'll watch this on my laptop while I'm playing a video game. Like you're
going to triple it. You're going to have 3 different sensory inputs.
I have watched quite a few movies while playing World of Warcraft.
Yeah, but this movie is like 2 things already.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Man.
I used to listen to commentary while playing games. That was my jam. I'd have Lord of the Rings commentary on behind me.
Oh my gosh.
While I was raiding in World of Warcraft in front of me.
So much.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
And thank you to Spencer for your suggestion of Interstella.
Yeah, something we probably would not have come across on our own as an option. So that was really cool.
And we love getting those suggestions from listeners.
Yeah.
So if you have an animated movie you would like us to watch, it doesn't have to have any music in it, because there are often musicals, but not always. Either one movie or a pairing of movies, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Dick, how can they reach us on Twitter?
Cellmates Podcast.
What about on Facebook?
Cellmates Podcast.
What about through email?
Cellmatespodcast@gmail.com.
Are there any other ways?
Cellmatespodcast.com.
Yeah.
I'll update that eventually.
That's a one-way street right now, but you can find links to this podcast on all your favorite apps and your friends' favorite apps. So reach out to us, and we love we love seeing movies that we don't know about yet, because you suggest them.
Yep.
That's what a suggestion does. Anyway,
cool.
For Cellmates Podcast, I'm Kate Phillips.
I am not Kate Phillips. I'm Dick Ward.
And toodles.
Yep. Oh, look at these mushrooms.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, don't look at these mushrooms.
Oh.
Yeah. Just like every other Disney movie.
Oh, boy, I forgot.
But especially the ones before, like, 1989. There's some problematic parts to this.
Okay. All right.